May the words of my mouth and the meditation of all our hearts be always acceptable in your sight, O God, our rock and our Redeemer. Amen. Please be seated. When have you started something, a project, a program, a job, and then had to leave it before it was finished? Had to leave it in the hands of other people and trust that they would carry it on? When have you had to leave something right in the middle? That happens to me all the time, both in my church life and my not church life. I get an idea, I get it going, I start something, or even I might jump in on somebody else's good idea right at the beginning and start getting things going, getting excited, getting other people excited. And then something happens. I move, I have another conflicting commitment, or simply my life just gets in the way, and I have to leave it before I'm finished, and certainly before I'm ready to. That happened when I left my job managing a coffee shop for seminary. I left loose ends and plans and ideas. It certainly happened when I had to leave the Kootenays to come back to Vancouver. I had a lay minister whose discernment process I had just gotten started, someone who should have been ordained 40 years before that. I had a favorite crib partner. I would go to her house once every week or so. She would feed me and give me alcohol, and my crib playing would go down, right? She beat me then, right? But we had plans, she and I. She was one of my support. She was one of my favorite people, and we had plans that I was going to do her funeral. I had to leave pieces of my life behind, leave them unfinished. Things I wanted to do, things I was doing, let them go and trust that somebody else would pick them up. When have you had to leave something unfinished and had to trust that someone else would pick it up? Moses is leaving something unfinished, a big something, his life's work. And it always seems to me so very bitterly unfair that Moses never gets to the promised land. He spends his whole life getting them there, arguing with Pharaoh, getting the people out of Egypt, crossing the Red Sea, all the shenanigans that go on in the desert. 40 years, he meets God face to face, and he doesn't get to the promised land. And it feels unfair. And yet, sometimes we have to leave the work unfinished, because the truth is we didn't do the work alone. It's not our work, it's God's, and we are part of a whole line of faithful people who came before us. My lay minister, who should have been ordained 40 years before, was who she was and where she was because of people who had come before her, who had nurtured her and fed her and given her work to do. My crib partner had had this most amazing life full of amazing holy people and had done amazing things. She was who she was because of a lot of people who had come before. We're part of a line. We're part of a line that came before us, that did things, planted things, started things, tended the work, and then also left it unfinished. Things for us to pick up, things that we've benefited from, taken forward, that have allowed us to do our work, the work God has given us to do in this place, in this time. We're part of this amazing and great line. Following Jesus, following God, means even when we have these amazing ideas, these amazing pieces of holy work that land in our laps, we didn't do them alone. We didn't come to them alone. We did them, we get to do them because of the work of others, because of seeds others have planted and tended. And when we have to let go of things, when things have to go unfinished, we're also part of a line that carries on, trusting that the people who come after us we'll pick it up, we'll tend it, we'll move it forward. Maybe not in the way we wanted, but in the way that is best for the community. We're part of a line of what comes before, and we're part of a line of what comes after. And that's true for Moses. He shepherded his people for 40 years. He began some amazing things, but he too is part of a line. He was able to be that leader, the one who was needed, because others faithfully following God had come before him. His mother, his sisters, the midwives, the leaders of the people who helped to get them ready for freedom, who planted seeds, who began things that they didn't get to finish either. And he's part of the line that comes after, the good and the bad. Martin Luther King Jr. uses this story, this exact story, in his last speech. The speech he gave right before he was assassinated to speak about what it means to leave the work unfinished. He's allowed me to go up to the mountain, and I've looked over and I've seen the promised land. I may not get there with you, but I want you to know tonight that we as a people will get to the promised land. So I'm happy. Tonight I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. It's a deeply powerful speech, and I can't do it justice. So if you haven't heard it, I would encourage you to listen to him give this speech. He was part of a line that stretched before him, a line that is still stretching down into today. He was able to be the leader that was needed because of the people who came before him. And even after he died, the work he left unfinished was picked up and continues to be picked up by those who come after. He was part of the great continuing line, and so are we. We are part of this line. We are part of those who came before us. We are here in this community doing the work that God has given us because of seeds that others have planted and tended. We have become the harvest in a way, and just as we are planting seeds for those who will come after, some things we will get done, and other things we will leave unfinished before we're ready. And all of that is based on holy trust, in living in hope and trusting in God and in others. Just as Moses had to trust God that others would lead the people to the promised land, who live in hope that they would get to the promised land, just as Martin Luther King had to trust in God that others would continue the work of civil rights, equality, and justice, and we would get there. We're still trying to get there. So do we. We need to trust in God. That's what it means to be a disciple, to live in hope and trust in God, to hope and trust that God is bigger than us, and that those who come after us will pick up our unfinished work, the things we weren't able to do, because the work we do, the ministry of which we are a part, didn't begin with us. It's not ours, it's God's. It found root and good soil because of the work of others who came before. Leaving things unfinished is part of living in faith because it's about living in hope. The people got to the promised land. The work of civil rights and equality and justice, it goes on. My lay minister got ordained a year later than I wanted her to, but she got ordained, and a faithful priest buried my favorite crib partner. And just as I've looked after others, other people, as we continue on our holy journey, the work we do, the things God has given us to do right here in this place, pieces of justice and reconciliation and peacemaking, caring for the environment, caring for others who society would throw away, Even how we behave right now in the midst of a pandemic when so many are tired and scared and lonely. These are acts of living in hope, of picking up pieces that were unfinished by others, of planting seeds so that others can tend them. They're acts of hope, trusting and hoping in God, knowing that we get to do this because people came before us and that others will come after. When have you picked up the work that someone else began? How are we all a part of the line that continues to live in hope and carry on with the work God gives us? Amen.